This is 100 watts and a wire.
So we were talking a little bit. I went on the TikTok, actually. I went to TikTok and I was like, what do you guys want to deal with? What topics do you want to talk about? You know, and it's not super engaging over there. The people are either watching your 1 minute and flip going on, you know how you go on the TikTok. And one of our friends over there was like, how about some test gear, you know, for newer hams? And I'm like, yeah, it sounds kind of cool. I think that's fine. And so I threw it out there to Steve, like, what do you think we should do on this one? And so he came up with his list of potential things to think about. We're not sponsored in any part by any of these companies, but Steve does own some of the stuff. I have a couple of these pieces as well. And so I think let's go through it, Steve, and you can kind of tell us why you dig it. And if you're, you can go back and watch the replay. For our listening audience, all the links are available on the YouTube episode. So they'll all be in the description, all of these links. If you buy any of these things, you don't have to, then the show will get some pennies on the dollar. It'll help the show, but you don't have to. Just a link. And Steve provided these because he feels that the newer ham could use it. So Steve, let's start off with number one here. You've got a Comet CN501H2. This is an SWR meter. Talk to us a little bit about the importance of an SWR meter.
Well, it's one way, if you have an SWR meter, is to, when you're putting up your antennas, tuning them and getting your station going. It's another, also another thing is to have it in line, and you can see if something changes throughout the course in the winter, or something happens, like all of a sudden your SWR goes out of, over the top. Then you're like going, holy smokes, what's happened? And so it's a piece of gear, just you can use while operating, or when you're setting up your antenna system. It's the original way that we used to set up our antennas before we had these analyzers that make it just super simple. I have an MFJ version, and we also have it in as a link. It's this one is good for basically from 160 meters up to 6 meters. So yeah, this is a one that's good for excuse me, for HF. The other thing I like about this particular one is this orange button here is either you set it in peak reading or RMS reading, or average as they call it. So most meters are going to kind of average the reading. So hey Sidecar, I'm not getting 100 watts out of my radio. I'm only seeing 50, 60 watts when I'm talking on it. Well, if you have a peak meter reading, put it into the peak mode, and it will it'll be closer to the 100 watts. So that's another option that not all meters have it, but it's something that you might want to consider. This particular meter is good for, I think, about 3K. So 3 kilowatts, definitely a lot more than what we're authorized, but it's good to have a meter that will go there. So yeah, I selected the MFJ, being I had it, and then it's at 158 through Amazon. The Comet was a similar meter, but a little bit cheaper. So kind of give you the option whether you want an MFJ or a Comet. So watt meters come in all forms, and I think I threw in another one that was that's the MFJ. That's a different one. And then I have this other. This is a diamond, but it's this is geared for 2 meters and above. So when you're getting watt meters, kind of just look at the frequency range that they'll work in. This is basically a VHF UHF one, and it's only good for 200 watts. So, and then if you really want the ultimate, which we didn't put in here, and but this is the gold standard, is the Berg 43 watt meter. These are very expensive watt meters, and you change your bands and settings and readings by these little slugs that go in here, and it just goes in there, and then you can read forward power or flip it over, and you can read reverse power. So, but that's that particular watt meter is an overkill. But they make slugs that will be good for 10,000 watts. So,
and they're always. I'm sorry, Steve. I just know that they hold up. They're, if you have one of those, they seem to keep their value and they seem to work.
Oh yeah, mine take a lot of abuse, so it gets banged around and stuff like that. So the next we have up is the MFJ, that basically the first real affordable SWR antenna analyzer, and this particular one, they've gone up in price, but this is, I think, the 259D. So they started off with the 259, then came out with the B model, C model, and now they're at the D model. They've always kind of improved upon it, and so this is more than just doing an SWR analyzing. It does a plethora of other features and functions that you can do. You can even, with this particular unit, you could turn around and figure out the length of a piece of coax. You got a piece of coax, you go, I don't know how long it is. It's all coiled up. Well, pull out the analyzer, and it will give you a footage reading on how long that cable is by setting it up and a few measurements. So, a great valuable piece of test equipment if you're into building antennas, or if you just build a few, but you're involved with a club or something like that. Even if you're a club, get one of these, and then and loan it out to club members when they're doing antenna projects. But it's a great tool.
That's a bit of a classic too, isn't it, Steve? That's one of the things that MFJ is really known for. That's one of the pieces of equipment that people are definitely trusting. You hear some different things about MFJ. They've got some good things that are good, some things are not so good, but that's been one of those pieces that have held up. I think anyway. That's
held up, and then I have the 269 version, which is the same analyzer, but it also includes the UHF band, so it just gives you some more option. I think this one maybe tops out at 170. I know the earlier ones do. I'm not sure exactly. This one is. Does the 280 kilohertz, 100 to 160 kilohertz, all the way up to 230. So yeah, they brought up the top end a little bit. So now you can do all these new LF bands that we got, analyze antennas there. So, and then there's our favorites is the Rig Expert. I just happened to grab the AA35, which I have here, and found a link. Similar price than the MFJ. Gives you what I like about the Rig Expert, definitely a lot smaller. It gives you a visual representation of the band. You can also export it and import it into some software, and then you can have a nice, pretty presentation on your computer screen and print it out. And so another valuable piece of test equipment, especially if you're making antennas and working on projects like that.
Look at this. A boom. Another
one. The other one's good up to 55 megahertz, so a little bit more. It's but they also have ones that they got a unit that's a 4-digit model. That's 4 digits for it. So they go up there and quite 600 megs, and so depending on your needs, Rig Expert probably has the device for you.
And your budget. What else do we have here?
So here, this is a vector network analyzer. So these are a great little tool. There's a lot of info here. It's another tool that you can use to analyze your antennas, and it can do so much more. But what's nice about it, this particular one is the $59 version is on a pretty small screen. So it's about a 3-inch screen, 2. Look at that.
What you got?
He has one.
I got my Nano VNA with a 3D printed case that I got off of eBay for it.
There you go. So, and then there's a second version which has a slightly bigger screen, about a 4-inch screen, and that would be this one. basically the same analyzer, but it just has a bigger screen. And then there's also a software that you load onto a Windows-based machine, and then you can export your findings onto the PC, and I think you can operate it, but don't quote me on it. I haven't tried it. I got one. I have the 4-inch version. It's in my toolbox. It's a great device. I use it to sweep cavities, and haven't used it much with HF antennas because I just kind of use this guy because he's so much simpler and easier to use. The one drawback with the VNA, the instructions is very minimal, but there's a lot of YouTube videos out there that that will show you how to use it up, and how to set it up and use it. Once you get it calibrated, it's pretty straightforward. But it's a great piece of test equipment and relatively inexpensive. So
calibration is key
one.
with those nano VNAs.
I'm sorry, what was that again?
Oh, it's the calibration is key with those nano VNAs.
Yeah, exactly. So now we're going into meters. So we're going to start off with, just bare bones inexpensive. This was a $10 meter. I got one here that's probably a $12, $14 meter. It's pretty straightforward. One of the drawbacks on like a meter like this, if you're doing voltage measurements, you kind of have to figure out what voltage range you're going to be in, because if this particular one has 200 millivolts, and then 2000 mil, and then 2 volts, and then or 20 volts, and then 200 volts, and then 300 volts or something like that. So I need my glasses. But you got to set the ranges in there and kind of figure out where you're going to be. So on these meters, you end up starting at the highest and then, click your way down until you get into the reading. So this next one, similar, just a little bit more. It's auto ranging, and which is kind of nice. And this one was just a relatively inexpensive, not super. What was it, $15 or something like that? It's pretty straightforward. It's great, to have in a toolbox or something. I carry this little red guy in my box, and it's my backup to my backup. It's I've got quite a few meters, and there's always every now and then you just like, oh crap, my other meters are in that case, and I only have this box with me. So now here you get up, stepping it up a little bit. This is Klein. Klein Tools has a pretty nice meter set. It auto ranges, and it does this particular one, AC/DC, current, capacitance, frequency. They pretty much all kind of got that. And so another one there that you're starting to, and then there's the Fluke 101, which is, I'm a really big fan of the Fluke. It's a industry standard meter, but this guy is tiny. He is really small, and so I'm going to put him next to a Fluke 87. So here's the size. It's but this 101 is a really super basic meter. It just has voltage for AC, DC. You can do millivolts, resistance. It looks like it has some capacitance and then a little frequency counter in there. But what's nice about it, you just set whatever mode you want to put it in. Bit of bang, bit of boom. I mean, this thing is tiny. This is a really small meter. This is the guy. If you're going to invest in a meter, I would, $43. It's a pretty good deal for a little meter.
That's the Fluke 101. All of these selections by Steve, you got 12 of them. They'll be listed in the description down below in the YouTube video, so you can see these products and if anything fits your budget. But he feels that these things are things you should probably have at your disposal as you're analyzing antennas, as you're checking your SWR, and that sort of thing. And we wanted to give you a few price ranges. So that was important to us. Steve, there was a question that came in real time about the watt meters. Which one did you prefer when it came to the MFJ versions? Here's one here, MFJ 870, and the other MFJ was the 874.
874, yeah. Well, the 870, now see, the 874, look at it. It is only good it's a VHF unit. So it's only good for 200 watts. For HF, I go with the 870, which is, it's the all around, it's the 1 meter you use for your HF, and whether you're only running 100 watts or you're running full legal limit, this will cover it all. It's, I've been using this one for a number of years. It was one of those that, well, let me give it a try. It's not that expensive, and it's been pretty accurate. It's held up, and it's a great tool. And I left it in line for many years, and then my current setup with the ACOM has a built-in digital watt meter, so I took this guy out of line, and now he's just basically on my bench. So if I'm testing an HF rig on the bench, I got this and this guy. And this is a 1500 watt dummy load. It's and this is very important. We should all of us should have dummy loads. This one is from Veritronics. It's an MFJ company. It's good for 1500 watts, but you see this little graph on the back? 1500 watts is right up here. It's only, you got 10 seconds to pump 1500 watts into it. 750 watts, you got 30 seconds. So, but it's an air-cooled dummy load. It's not that it wasn't that expensive, and it's I keep it in my antenna switch. So, if there's any time I need to do a tune-up, I just select the dummy load, tune up, bit of bang, bit of boom, we're on, and then switch back into the antenna, and off we go. So. This is
there you go. Nice.
But if you're working on a bench, these are the two items you would definitely want to have if you're going to work on a radio: a watt meter and a dummy load. And they dummy loads come in all kinds of sizes and shapes. In fact, go like this. Stick your fingers on the connector and key up, and away you go. You could be the dummy load.
Wow, wow. Okay. All right. For complete episodes, subscribe where you get podcasts and click the bell here on YouTube for features and live streams.